Coming back. That's greetings, my fellow survivors. Welcome to another episode of the X Button. We're now on episode 11. My name is Alejandro, fellow survivor, and also I want to give a warm welcome to also my other fellow survivor.
That's
How you doing,
me.
Paul?
I'm doing all right. I am surviving. I think I saw a couple of Modern Warfare zombies out there the other day.
No, I think I heard clickers. Actually, I'm hearing clickers right
Are
now.
you? Maybe it's because of the geographical change. Like this is the cabin in the woods situation where all of the horror creatures come to life in different areas of the world.
Yes. So, Paul, just so for people will know because of how things will be posted this week, they will have noticed that two episodes went live this week,
That's
even though
true.
there had been a little bit of a hiatus. So, just for people to know the inside baseball, the last episode we recorded, the Xbox on episode 10, was we recorded it immediately after
Nintendo
the
Directs.
road to PS5
Oh
thing,
wait, yeah, that's right.
the yeah, the live stream, and that happened on March 18th.
Yep.
So what happened was when I recorded that, I was at my office doing some work, and then I left my computer there because I was like intending to go back to it, and then we had like a national emergency where we had to do a lockdown.
Hmm.
Everyone had to remain at their home, so my computer was stuck in my office for all that time. So I wasn't able to post it. I wasn't able to edit it, and I just recently got my computer back after a bunch of red tape to be able to get it out of my office without being sent into Guantanamo Bay due to this virus.
Yeah.
So, like where I'm at, this is literally. It feels like I'm in the Hunger Games. There's like patrols everywhere. Like if you're like catched outside, they're gonna beat you up and send you towards quarantine. Like
Which,
here in El
by the way,
Salvador.
for everybody listening, Alejandro lives in El Salvador. Just to
Yeah,
clarify.
exactly. So, and Paul is in the U.S.,
That
which,
I
by the
am.
way, just recently has become the epicenter of this whole mess, which is so
Yeah.
sad.
Um,
That
Especially my state, because they said California, I think New York and Louisiana are the biggest epicenters right now. And at least those areas are bigger than where we are at. But yes, because of the prevalence of people being so close together, just both because families and also proximity wise, New Orleans gets very crowded. And a lot of people didn't take it seriously for a while, I think, as well, and it just
I think no one
spiraled.
did, even people at the top. But we're not gonna get into
Hmm.
politics here. Let's just say that
Yeah.
for everyone that is stuck inside at home, we're wishing you all the best, and for you to stay healthy, for you to still be practicing social distancing, and for you to just err on the side of caution
Hmm.
during this whole thing because as you can see now, I think the U.S. just passed 100,000 cases, confirmed cases,
Yeah.
which beat Italy, which was at like 80,000 a couple of days
Hmm.
ago. And
I
yeah,
mean,
it just goes to show that
yeah,
pandemics can be pandemics.
it's
These are not hoaxes.
true. Uh,
But so it is a
yeah.
literal hell on earth right now in a way that I had never expected
Maybe
this to
still a bit
be.
more of a figurative hell on earth, honestly, because it could get way worse. But I am it is definitely a little bit hectic, a little bit frantic, and I still think we got a little bit of humanity left in us and a little bit of society left, A little-
Yeah.
which is
But
positive.
how sooner, Paul, will this get worse before it gets better? Like it really is looking like we haven't even hit the ceiling because I feel the U.S. just recently started enforcing home quarantine. Like I know the state of Texas started on Thursday, and then my friends at Oklahoma told me on Saturday they enforced it.
Mm.
So have they enforced that there in Louisiana?
Well,
Since
that's
it's
the
like,
confusing thing because as I see it, there's still plenty of people moving around, having to go to work. There's so many like quote unquote essential businesses that have to be
mhm,
open. And I mean, as long as that's going to happen, there's going to be people that are still getting exposed to things. I mean, I had to start shopping for my parents so that they weren't getting out there,
mhm,
and
yeah,
just trying to figure all that out. So it's kind of weird because I mean, like yesterday, for instance, I saw more people out at the parks than I think I ever have, and
That's bad.
I
That's bad.
it's
That's
yeah.
really bad.
But that's the thing. Like, I have confirmation from several doctors, one of which is in my family and one of which it's not. But they say like going outside is not the bad thing. It's just the getting too close to people. So as long as you're
Hmm.
outside of this amount of time, because they say like the coronavirus can't spread through just air; it has to be
Hmm.
contact or bodily fluids, where like people
Hmm.
sneezing and coughing and being near each other. So as long as you're away from people, you're fine with going outside. You're fine with going to the park. You just can't be around people, and that's the part that people
Hmm.
keep ignoring.
Yeah,
Um,
especially when they said that you have to be 6 feet away. How do you measure that when you're in your day to day life?
exactly. You just kind
So
of
that's
gauge
and
it.
that yeah, exactly. So yeah, but like I said, to anyone listening, yeah, just exercise caution. The more you exercise caution and take this seriously, the sooner everyone's gonna get out of this pandemic. I have to commend my country because we locked down before we ever had our first case, and literally the reason why we had a first case was because we had someone that traveled to Italy in when the whole epidemic exploded, and then when we closed out the border
Mm.
for anyone to come in and out, the person arrived in Guatemala and then crossed the border illegally towards El Salvador, and he had the virus. So this is literally the scene from the Simpsons movie when Homer like dumps the when they're like at the border of like epidemic crisis for like pollution and all
Hmm.
that, and then he like dumps the big pig crap
Yeah, yeah.
silo thing, and then they had to lock down the whole country with like the dome and all that. It's all because of one person.
Yep.
That was literally
Uh
us.
huh.
And now we have 30 confirmed cases.
Golly.
So yeah, and they enforced the quarantine of no one going in and out, and becoming this whole Half-Life slash Last of Us like slash Hunger Games reality for us, which it's less cooler in practice than one would think when
Oh
you're
yeah.
like looking at that fiction. So
Turns out murder is still illegal. So
yeah.
it's just all the negatives.
Exactly. So yeah. But hey, this is we're not here to just talk pandemics. We just kind of needed to housekeep on that. So again,
Yes.
keep safe, stay safe. Lots of games now to play. Finally, the tsunami hit right in. So Paul, so obviously you have been locked down. What
Yeah.
have you been playing, seeing or hearing?
So I bit the bullet and got Animal Crossing.
All right.
Specifically, my fiance Elizabeth grew up playing them, and I didn't realize that at all. I kind of mentioned in passing, I was like, "Oh, hey, would you like to get Animal Crossing?" And she like lit up, was like, "Would you do that?" Like, because she's still kind of in college doing her master's degree, so she doesn't have a lot of money. But I was like, "Yeah, I'll get it for you." And I was at like out of curiosity, I was like, "I have no interest in buying this. I'm not getting anything until Final Fantasy VII." And I would watch her play it and having so much fun with it, and I was like, man, like that does seem kind of relaxing and fun. And then I found
Mm-hmm.
a coupon or a gift card to Walmart for like $33. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And ever
Yeah, might as
since,
well.
like I put that
How are
sucker.
you liking? So how are you liking Chores, the game?
I love it. Because not only it's not really just the chores. All you're doing is like you're getting to fish, you're getting to catch some bugs, you're getting to harvest some fruits for the fun of it. And like it's not the boring things like doing your laundry. It's not the stuff like doing your taxes and figuring out how you're going to spend money on your next meal. It's the fun stuff that you can sit out in the environment in the outdoors and enjoy with some calming music too. And then on top of it, we finally figured out how to play together online, which that's been a whole debacle with Nintendo. Like their servers are garbage with Animal Crossing, but
Oh, Nintendo not nailing online.
yep.
It's like the sky is blue
Oh,
and
dude,
water is wet.
it is so convoluted to get online in that game, but we figured out through local play because online is busted, and
Mhm.
we were just messing around picking flowers. We played tag at one point. I'd never played tag in like 2 decades, so that was really fun. It was just
Mhm.
like I felt like a kid again. It was really cool, and
Yeah.
of all the things that I was doing, it was just a nice change of pace to play something that I don't normally play. And I really suggest that just across the board to anybody to play something that you don't normally think you'd enjoy, and you might be surprised.
Yeah, I feel yeah. I'm actually one of those people that actually considered it but decided against it because I know myself.
Yeah.
I like goals. I like striving towards something instead of just something being like an endless thing.
Hmm.
So I think the biggest compliment I can give Animal Crossing is that it's quirky and cheery at a time where everything's so dark and dire outside.
True.
So and people are like finding fun ways to socialize through it
Yeah.
in a way that like warms my heart, and I'm like happy that that's happening. But yeah, it's just like that kind of simulation thing. It never worked for me in Harvest Moon. I gave it a shot in Stardew Valley.
Mm.
Yeah, that kind of game's not for me. But I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Anything else that you're playing?
That was mostly it. I know I've been playing a lot of my usual games online. Been playing more of a Horizon Zero Dawn. I playing
Mhm.
the Call of Duty and all that stuff. Got a little bit frustrated at it because for whatever reason, that game is such a like you could play it one day and be amazing, play it the next day and be garbage. And
And Modern Warfare.
yeah, it blows my
Yeah.
mind how like ad accurately that is because you go through one day where you're getting 30 kills and then you go through the next day you can't get one kill. And it's really funny how that happens constantly.
Yeah, it's the reason why like I tend to stay away, especially from the battle royale scene, because it to me it always feels like the first game that I play is one I win and kind of gets me all excited,
Mm.
and then I just get massively soul crushingly destroyed afterwards.
True.
And yeah, I can't do it. Anything else?
That's about it, Alejandro. What you been playing?
All right, so quite a bit actually. So you picked Animal Crossing. I actually picked Doom Eternal
Yeah.
because at a time where do we have a literal hell on earth outside, what more cathartic thing than channel that frustration to a literal hell on earth in the game?
Right.
As it just blasts demons into eternity, pun intended. So Doom Eternal, man, that game, it's it's great. I'll leave. I'll start with that. It's a really great game. Like incredibly beautiful, incredibly fast paced, frantic, hectic, like unapologetic with what it is. It's like it's literally Doom 2016 on steroids. Like and it literally just throws so much crap at you
Hmm.
that every firefight that you have at that game, every time that you finish one, you take a big damn. It feels like that. It always feels like everything is like all kinds of challenge, and the things and how it has improved on Doom 2016 in like movement and all of that is actually really cool because it has become more of a thinking man's game because you have to like really strategize on the fly.
Hmm.
Like yeah, the Doom 2016 like gave you that whole arsenal of weapons
Yeah.
and kind of like teached you that you can't play that game like a traditional shooter of staying behind cover and pick enemies apart one by one. Like that game is all about forward momentum and you actually getting in the face of enemies to you do the glory kills, which in turn that's how you recover health or other stuff. And the game makes sure that you get that loop more, but also forces you to use literally every tool at your disposal. So like you have like a little flamethrower that if you want to recharge your armor, you use that flamethrower to kill enemies to get the green armor.
Mm.
You still do the glory kills to recharge health. Uh, you have your chainsaw, which was Doom 2016 was like always limited, but it was like a quick way for you to always recover ammo. In this one, it's still limited, but it always also has a rechargeable mode, so that you have your three ones that you can use like back to back. But then if you run out, you have to like wait for a little cooldown if you want to use it again, and it's like primordial for you to use if you want to always get ammo. And it's like a constant loop. It reminds me a lot of that Halo loop
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
shooting melee grenade, something like that. It kind of like they call it like this the 30-second loop
Yeah. Mm.
that is like very satisfying. So they kind of like try to pursue that, and that's really cool.
Huh.
And also the environmental variety of that thing is incredible. Like it's reminded me a lot of Metroid Prime.
Oh.
It feels like they got people from Metroid Prime to come do level design, because some of those things like has kind of like that futuristic, super colorful feel to it.
Hmm.
On top of going to the hellscapes with all the satanic pentagrams and all of that that comes with like hell, but there's like more of like there's actually a story in this game,
Hmm.
which is dumb. It's like they like add lore and like all about like the sentinels, and ironically, like the place where the Doomslayer became the Doomslayer is a place was called Sentinels, at a place called Sentinel Prime, and this robot called Samuel Hayden sounds like Optimus Prime. So I'm like, are they doing like a Transformers in joke here? Like, and then these things about like mythological gods fighting like all this like priests from hell, and it border like it was getting close to Duke Nukem territory of like of ridiculous, of this kind of like 90s rock and roll aesthetic
Yeah.
of like mythological gods and all that. Yeah, it's a
Huh.
it was
That
weird.
sounds fun.
Yeah, but with all this said, I think Doom 2016 is better.
Mm.
Like when you put it all together, um, I went back to play it after I finished Eternal, and it just goes to show just how brutally difficult Doom Eternal has become. Like because the original Doom was hard, especially if you were playing it like a traditional shooter, especially because the big thing was trying to go back to old school shooters, and this one, it was basically perfect, the original, for what it was trying to do. It was like particularly challenging, but it didn't push it too hard. Like it always felt like the challenge was there. But this one, halfway through the game, this game just throws everything at you. Like literally, like it starts to become really annoying, especially once they introduce this enemy called the Marauder, which is like an enemy that completely breaks the game. Like suddenly you have this, and like in a game that teaches you to always be fast, always be like dashing around, because they added a little dash, like if it was Call of Duty Advanced Warfare or Halo 5, like they added that kind of like dashing, which actually works really well with the platforming, which actually make this game feel like a first person Uncharted at times.
Hmm.
uh that helps kind of break the pacing, which I thought it was fine. Some people didn't like the platforming, who cares. But this Marauder guy, so here's this enemy that has a shield and a sword. If you get too close, the enemy pulls out his shotgun and blasts you with it and pushes you away. You get too far, he has like his sword has like a laser beam that shoots you from afar. So you have to like be like in this. You have to practice social distancing with him. Like you like literally, you have to like hit this arbitrary distance so that this enemy neither shotguns you or shoots you with his laser sword, so that then like his green eyes eliminate because he's about to do like a melee attack, and that's when you shoot him.
Mm.
Unfortunately, when all of this is happening, you have the pinky demons, you have the cyber demons, you have everything around you shooting and like blasting you to oblivion. And doesn't that sound stressful to you, just me explaining
Oh
it?
yes.
Yeah. And every time that I go into an encounter and I see like a fire werewolf, because the fire werewolf always signals the entrance of this Marauder. I wanted to break my controller. I was like, God damn! I was God damn it! Here it is, and yeah, it just becomes too much. Like I play this game in the normal difficulty, and I have this ego thing that I don't like lowering difficulties
Mm.
because it makes me feel like a failure.
Yeah.
But I was getting close. Yeah, I was like literally getting too close to doing that, and I don't know what they were thinking with this Marauder, especially because everything around this enemy was like so thoughtful. How like the game teaches you, if you have like the arachno demons, which is kind of like these demons that are like robots that are like spiders. If you pull your sniper and destroy their cannon at the top, that makes them wanna the spider wanna melee you, getting closer to you, so that way you can pull the shotgun
Hmm.
and just like blast them real quickly. And there's the enemies with cannons in their arms that shoots you like missiles. If you shoot those out, then it becomes like just laser shots, which lowers the damage that you receive, so you can go hit everything else. There's also the these demons that have like the cannons in its back, and then if you destroy them, they become melee enemies. So it's like there's so much thought put throughout everything. But then when you add the fact that they have actually nerfed ammo in this game, you have way less ammo in this game than you did in the original Doom, because they're trying to force you to always be chainsawing people to get ammo back and all that. It's like the game is more thoughtful, but it also forces you into a different kind of play style for almost from the very beginning. And I feel some people will relish the challenge while others will just be turned off by it. uh, I wouldn't even know where you would land in there. But let's just say that after I finished it, I was like, I had a great time. I don't think I want to play this game again.
Hmm.
That's how that's how stressful the last sections of this game were, and it's a bummer because as I was playing that game, I was like, I'm really loving this thing. I was like so high on it because it's like going through the different environments, something like the clever level design, everything like just literally you have to watch the visuals of this game. It's like stunning. It's the kind of stunning that I'm like, why do we need new consoles if my base PS4 can run this game so smoothly? Like this game was like running at the full resolution at 60 frames per second with literally two times that it dipped,
Dang.
but it was like so beautiful. Like it was so beautifully made. And I still say it's a great game that I would recommend people to at least see if they can get into the challenge, because I think I'm glad I still did, because it actually ends really cool. It actually reminds me of Halo 4.
Really?
Almost. Yeah, because there's an enemy near the end that reminds me of the Didac of Halo 4.
Mm-hmm.
Down to the coloring of the levels and the design of the
Hmm.
levels, and you having to melee the enemy, which on Halo 4 was a quick time event, and this game was an actual boss fight. Uh, it just reminded me of that. But whereas I thought Doom 2016 got everything right, this one, I feel this is another victim of, oh, we're doing a sequel. We have to add stuff because it's a sequel,
Hmm.
even though we got it right. And by adding too much stuff, they probably ended up hurting the game more than they intended to be, just because they added stuff. And I kind of, it actually, it made me really feel bad for developers because they're in a catch 22.
Mm-hmm.
Would you play a sequel that was literally just the same,
No.
or do you want them to add stuff as a and that's the thing, and there's always that danger that maybe what they add, it's going to always improve the game. I always think back to last generation with Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, and Mass Effect. The first games of those series, in my opinion, had a lot of promise, but also had like very big flaws. But their sequels really nailed it, like nailed pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then their third games kind of added maybe too much that then started to ruin stuff. But it feels like a lot of games this generation, their first version were probably really good, and then their sequels were like, because the same thing happened to me with Ori, which I kind of mentioned last time that we recorded,
Yeah.
which I'm still playing. I'm actually liking it more and more, but
Really?
that one also, yeah, I'm liking that game more and more now that I'm getting more of the upgrades. And kind of like I have accepted that Hollow Knight became more of an inspiration for that game than just a traditional Super Meat Boy Metroidvania
Nice.
style of a platformer. So once like my mindset finally shifted, I started to see where they were going for. But again, that was like I felt that wasn't really necessary. So yeah, it's like it actually, now I am more terrified than ever about what The Last of Us Part 2 will be,
Hmm.
because they did say
Yep.
that that's like the biggest game Naughty Dog has ever made. So now
Yep.
now I'm starting to like start thinking of, damn it, if that it is, what have they added? Like, have they like bloated that game up just to say that they because it was a sequel? Like, it's been a while since I played a game where I played a sequel that I'm like, they got it right. They added enough that really improved the experience, instead of like, ah, man, they got it right the last time.
Mm.
Yes, I don't know if it's just me getting older and getting more jaded and appreciating more of a time of simplicity, but I feel that's just like invading a lot of games recently, and I don't know if that's the right way to do it. And I feel developers feel forced to do that now just to justify the sequels. But yeah, that was Doom Eternal, and like, so another game that I was playing. Like I mentioned, Ori still kind of tracking along there. I also did play the Resident Evil 3 demo, which, by the way,
Oh yeah.
as of the time of recording, the review embargo
Has just
was
lifted, I
lifted.
think.
Yeah, so some interesting ranges.
Hmm.
IGN and Game Informer gave it a 9. GameSpot gave it a 6.
Yeah.
And based on the demo I played, I feel GameSpot's review seems closer. But again, this is just me speaking from my experience in the demo. I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
You played it too, right,
I
Paul?
did, and I accidentally beat it in 12 minutes. Now, to explain, I don't accidentally beat anything. It's usually like pulling teeth for me to figure out where I'm supposed to go. Usually, if like there's more than one branch to something, I'm gonna get lost. Honestly, if there was a hallway with two turns, I'd somehow get myself turned around. And I've done that so many times, especially on a stream where I'm sitting around like, what? Did I miss something? What is going on? Well, I just happened to be playing through the Resident Evil 3 demo, and I just like it ended before I realized that I wasn't prepared at anything, and it really disappointed me based on how that was playing out, and I was really hoping that it was just because maybe they took like part of the game, they didn't really have a good spot where they were like, yeah, we can feel comfortable, this is a good demo spot. It seemed like they just kind of picked something kind of in the middle and was like, let's throw a couple of extra items in here, kind of the idea of what we're looking for, and get that in there. But honestly, somebody was explaining what it felt like. It was enough of the Resident Evil 2 remake to feel familiar, but because it's more focused on action, and there's like a lot more ammo, and I'm hoping that's not just because of the demo, but this was also a review of the game itself. They said there's so much ammo compared to the Resident Evil 2, and it was less about the puzzles and exploration and more about just like taking out the zombies and fighting Nemesis and all that.
Hmm.
And then they said Nemesis wasn't even like as big of a deal as they thought. Like he was more about the boss fights and moments of like jump scares. He wasn't like Mr. X where he was just always there following you, you know?
Yeah, I feel my problem was that it felt too much like RE2 in a way, which again, kind of like, I think it goes to show me that I probably maybe wasn't mentally prepared for another game on this style this soon.
Yeah.
Because I'll say that this game is incredibly beautiful, also.
Hmm.
And just to kind of I think we have finally reached the point where saying that a game is beautiful doesn't mean
Means,
anything
yeah,
anymore.
nothing.
Yeah, it means nothing. It's like everything. Like it feels like since like 2017 onwards, or even before
Yeah.
2016 onwards, like detail in games has just like become so much better that I feel that has lost any meaning. And just playing that demo, it to me just felt off. I don't know if I wasn't in the right mood for it. I don't know if they changed enough of it, or the feel of it being now in the city instead of like in the more secluded areas of RE2
Hmm.
changed the feel of things. But then I remember as soon as I arrived at Nemesis, it made me realize I don't want to play a game like that right now,
Hmm.
because to me, like just the section when you see Nemesis in the demo felt overbearing, with like him jumping around and all that. I'm like, ah. Because at the very least with Mr. X, he was like the hulking dude with its big
Yeah.
fedora, just walking around like in very menacing steps, and it was still scary, but it always felt like something that you can get away with. And I could see places where Nemesis in this one would like cross that annoying line
Hmm.
for me. That I was like, you know what? In the middle of a tsunami of releases right now, I feel I can pass on this one for now.
Yeah.
I read that the game is 6 hours long.
What?
Yeah, which, to be fair, a campaign playthrough, a single campaign playthrough of RE2, either with Leon or Claire, was also 6 hours,
Now, I don't
and I
know about
screenshot
that
it.
because it took me about 15 to
No,
finish.
I beat it in six,
Man.
just the Leon playthrough, and another 6 hours, the alternate path with Claire. Like it's 6 and 6, so it was like a 12 hours total. Unless you were like playing
I think it was once
obnoxiously
again me
slow.
just getting really lost and
Exactly.
taking
So
me
yeah,
longer to
probably
get
yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, probably that was probably what happened. So when I read that, even though RE3 also has the multiplayer, the Pride Resistance thing, which is like
Yeah.
a 4v1 thing, where one player controls Mr. X, and then the other thing is kind of like a Left 4 Dead thing.
Hmm.
Um, I feel the shooting in this Resident Evil games isn't strong enough for that kind of multiplayer shooter for me. So I
Especially
feel
since you
Resident
can't
Evil
hit anything ever in those games.
exactly, unless you're playing on easy with the auto lock on,
Right.
which is how I did my second playthrough
Huh.
on RE2 because I did my first playthrough normal and then my second playthrough on easy
Hmm.
just to kind of blast through it because I kind of wanted to get it done because that RE2 came out literally 4 days before Kingdom Hearts 3, and when because I was reviewing Kingdom Hearts 3, I knew I was
Oh,
gonna
that's
stop
right.
with
Jeez.
RE2, so I wanted to blast through it as fast as much as I could.
Hmm.
And RE and then when you have the auto aim on RE2, it's like it changes everything because the aiming ironically is the best Resident Evil has been. It's still not good. That's the irony. Like for what you expect. And you can't expect a tight shooter in those games because they're survival
Yeah,
horror.
that's kind of the idea, but at the
Yeah,
same
but
time,
then when the game starts like forcing you that it starts forcing your hand, which is what I appreciate of RE2 that it never became a shooter for me.
hmm,
Like I feel like it stuck that balance, and I heard that RE3 really goes more the action route later on, and I don't know. That's it, yeah. The demo, unlike the Final Fantasy VII demo that we played close to a month ago, almost, it feels like a year ago now with this whole mess. Uh, this one didn't make me more excited to play this one, even though I was so excited about the short announcement and release of this game. Remember, this game was announced in December,
yeah.
and it's already here. And for people that also kind of missed it, Half Life Alex
Hmm.
also got announced like around November, December of last year and made its March release. And it's getting like incredible reviews everywhere.
I've been watching some
Uh,
videos of it, and just the stuff you can do makes me really excited for VR.
yeah, and makes me sad that I don't have a VR,
Same.
but I don't have the money to shell for one of those right now. But it's like I kind of want more games to do that. The short announcement to release, because why build the hype? Like why build it?
Hmm.
And I feel that in this game's still reviewing relatively well. I think it's gonna do fine.
Yeah.
It's just in a week, literally from this week and next week. Persona 5 Royal comes out tomorrow. On Friday, will be Resident Evil 3. Then the next Friday is Final Fantasy 7 Remake.
Yes.
I'm still more excited about Final Fantasy, and I feel it's because I already had my RE experience last year,
Hmm.
and it was phenomenal. It was my third favorite game of the year, and my favorite survival horror game of all time,
Hmm.
arguably. Um, Replaying Dead Space has kind of like made me reconsider that statement, but I still, I still really, really enjoyed what I played of RE2. RE3 just feels a little too soon for me to be like in that right mindset, and I don't know if probably I would have felt better about it had RE3 come out in January or February when it should have, probably,
True.
but they probably didn't have it done by then. But who can blame them? Um, no, Paul, this was were all that we were playing. Anything that you had watched or seen?
Watching wise, I got to watch an anime called Black Clover, which was supposed to be like the next big three of all that after Bleach and Naruto ended, and
Mm-hmm.
that was an issue with it. A lot of people were saying because the series, like talking about how people add things for sequels and new games and stuff, as opposed to back in the day, whereas it was a very much a debate between something like the My Hero Academia that changed the whole idea and genre, and then you have Black Clover, which is a very basic by the numbers shonen series. The main guy is an absolute idiot, but he has like the heart and it's friends and all that's good stuff, and people were so sick of it, but yet it sold amazingly. And now to the point that I think they're on the third or fourth season, and they are one of the only series right now that is continually giving out one episode per week, as opposed to the new method of putting out a whole season each week and then stopping to let everything kind of catch up. Black Clover's just belted through because they have so much material from the source right now, and it's surprisingly gotten a lot better. As people have said, the animation has been pretty consistent, and it made me enough to the point I was like, you know what, I have some extra time, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch a few episodes, and you know what, honestly, sometimes even if you don't change things up, as long as you stick to your guns and you know what you're about, what you're trying to do, you can still make something good. I realized, because once you get used to the idea of like, yeah, I've seen this before, but you know what, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let it play itself out. It still
Mhm.
had enough to really like offer that it had me hooked enough that I kind of bolted through 7 or 8 episodes, and I'm probably going to keep trying to watch it, even though they're in like the
Mhm.
115 episodes by now.
Hey, I have a friend that literally just watched 500 episodes of Naruto.
Oof.
So during this quarantine time, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Because it's so anything else that you've watched?
Not too much. I know I'm excited for Disney Plus putting Onward on their streaming service, because they
Hmm.
basically got completely shafted by their theater release, with
I mean,
nobody
yeah,
going out there.
understandably so. The virus.
Yeah, I mean, well,
The-
you get the idea though. Like the fact that it just made me think about how they rely on those box office numbers to know if something's a hit or not. But then with all this
Mhm.
happening, they don't know if it was a good movie based on people watching it.
But
So
Paul, what if the actual digital intake? Because here's the thing: like Onward was released digitally for purchase.
right,
You can
just
still
recently.
extrapolate number. Yeah, you can still extrapolate numbers from that.
But you can
What
only
if
do
a
that for a certain amount of time, because it's going on Disney Plus on April 3rd, which is going to ruin people's need to buy it digitally.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you know that they have all this streaming services. They have their data. They have their heat mapping of how much people are like watching some stuff from the back end, even though they don't publicly say those numbers. Just the fact that some things remain in place in streaming services while other things leave kind of shows you um, how much people are actually
Like
watching
watching it.
some stuff.
Well, it's not
Yeah, so
necessarily what I mean as far as that goes, but because, like, with purchases, you can see how people follow the money. But when it's only something that's free, people like me who aren't going to buy a ticket to something like that are going to watch it. And that's a very different demographic than what they were aiming for. Not to mention, they're going to make so much less money because all they're relying on is the small window of the digital sales before Disney Plus opens it up, and then all they're relying on is the subscription service, which I know Disney's
yeah.
not hurting for money, but just the idea, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes. At the same time, Onwards is a Disney production that's going towards Disney Plus. It's not like Netflix getting a movie from somewhere from someone else. So like the money that Onward would make and the money Disney Plus makes separate to each other, it still goes towards Disney.
Right.
So a lot of people waiting to see this on Disney Plus is still a benefit to bolstering Disney Plus as a service, which in the long term makes more money for Disney than just a single purchase of a movie. Like when you like gather it all together,
Mm.
like that longer term to get you to keep you hooked and all that, that just becomes just one more ammo to put in into what you offer to the consumer. So
I can see what you're saying. I'm just thinking because of how much of an overlap there are between people that would have bought it and have the
mm-hmm.
subscription service. Whereas now they may have the subscription service and that's the only thing that they'll get from that. Whereas they had the like 30, $40 it would have been for a Blu ray copy of that thing out the
Yeah,
window.
I'll do you a better one in this one. I feel Disney Plus so far has been a relative disappointment
Really?
in in the content delivery
Oh,
thing
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
because when you just what you call it
Excuse me.
yeah where yeah, it's just inside baseball. uh we're having a little chat in our chat right now also
Yeah.
about some things that
TJ's
we're talking
blowing
about
up the
later.
chat right now.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, you were saying, goodness, that blanked me out too just now because I keep
Yeah,
hearing
no,
you
but like
talk
I said,
every
like
3
yeah,
seconds.
yeah, I know. So yeah, okay. So what I was saying is that Disney Plus, like whenever it was announced and they started announcing the lineups and all stuff,
Oh,
it
yeah.
sounded really, really exciting.
Oh, absolutely.
Then it launched, and then the original stuff, like that thing, is a treasure cup for your old stuff. If you want like a place to watch the Marvel movies or the
Right.
Star Wars movies and the old catalog, that's where it works. It's a relative disappointment when it comes to new stuff,
Mhm. Unless you have,
because
like,
it
kids, then y they have
exactly.
everything.
And I realized that the Disney Plus demographic, it's not hitting me like as I was expecting it to
Mhm.
when they were announcing it. And even Clone were like Mandalorian was great.
Oh, yeah.
It was just 8 episodes,
Mhm.
if I remember
That's correct.
correctly. Um
45 minutes each, roughly.
yeah,
40.
no, even less.
Yeah, 40 minutes.
And and after Mandalorian ended, I was like, okay, what am I supposed to? And it just made me realize that when I saw that huge back catalog, I wasn't in the mood for that kind of back catalog for me. I don't know why. And that's kind of like the problem with nostalgia. It's like a sugar high. You get it. Yeah, you literally get it in the moment. It's so great. And then once the high leaves, then you start like really thinking about
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, ah. So them releasing Onward this early, it's a bolstering for that service because it's a new movie.
Yeah.
It's a new movie.
I'll give it that. It's definitely a help for that because all of their Marvel TV shows that we were announced with have still yet to come out.
And now COVID-19 has delayed the
And
production of some of them.
yes,
So
so that's even worse as far as things that people that are more our age and older looking forward to that. I can't even think of anything else that they were really making that people were excited about outside of like the continued episodes of the Clone Wars, which I'm told they're finally getting into their second arc. Well, now they're in their second arc right now. 2 episodes in, it was a cliffhanger ending on the episode that we watched on Friday, and then the last arc, which will be taking place right
and Mandalore,
at the
the Siege
start
of
of
Mandalore.
episode 3 and through it.
Hmm.
Um, as we've
Yeah,
established before, like that's going to be
I
the
will
final
say
bit.
this since you mentioned Clone Wars. I've been a bit let down by the final season.
Yes, because I was
Yes,
just thinking about it myself,
yeah,
and
because
yeah, go
last time
ahead.
that we recorded was when Ahsoka was gonna make her debut, and her debut episode was not good.
I
It wasn't
actually
that
liked
great.
it. It was
I like the second episode better. The one and it, but it goes. It kind of like gave me that feeling of like it sucks that it's only 12 episodes
yeah,
because it feels like there hasn't been that much meat to this final season like I expected there would be.
right,
Like the first arc had its moments, like I'm kind of mentioned, with like with the Anakin foreshadowing
yeah.
thing of like him like destroying those leaders, kind of like similar to the Revenge of the Sith thing.
And in the end, he really
But
only killed one of them, and that was because it was a war, and he was also an enemy general. But it was just framed very dark. If they had just like phrased it like any differently, I don't even think it would have played that negatively against Anakin's character because he was
mhm,
basically in a hostage situation with his clones about to die, and he just did what he needed
mhm.
to kill him.
Exactly, but I'm hoping like my hope with Clone Wars is that the because the thing that they've hyped the most is the Siege of Mandalore, and kind of like how the Siege of Mandalore like informs a lot of what happened in the Mandalorian. That's where the Mandalorian came from.
Right.
Like those flashbacks were from the Siege of Mandalore. When you say so, the robots and all that.
Yes.
So
Um,
I kind of want to see how all of that kind of connects together, and hopefully that'll make this final season worth it because it's not as strong as I thought. The season 6 lost episodes together were probably stronger from what I remember
so
it.
far, but it's
Yeah,
also
so far.
still like our judgment of what's going on. Like I feel like that first arc is going to have to come back into play because
Hmm.
it felt completely disconnected. I feel like it's going to come back how we're working at it. But something else I noticed, there is such a jump in the animation between the first arc and the second. Have you noticed that?
Yes,
It is
yes, because
so weird.
from I don't have a source, but I remember hearing something about how like the first arc was one of the last few that they had some sort of production going
That would make sense.
back in season 6, and then they just never fully completed, and they just left the storyboards that they showed at Star Wars Celebration. So they just kind of finished the work, and then the arc 2 and arc 3 are the ones that when they knew that they were coming back, that's when they actually went back.
Yeah, because it is like
So,
night and day for like the motion of the movement of the characters. Because it's usually very like you have the motion of it and then they stop, and then motion and then
mhm,
they stop. Especially the lightsaber battles, it's really obvious. And of course they got better at it, but this is like the fluidity of the characters, the lighting. Oh my goodness, the lighting.
mhm,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, animation wise, it just goes to show how much better the animation of this show was
oh
than
yeah,
Rebels.
oh
Yeah,
so
Rebels,
much.
as good as the story in Rebels was, and I stand by the story of Rebels, the animation I feel did it a disservice, a huge, huge
Mhm.
disservice. But yeah, anything else that you've been watching, or that's it?
That's about it. I say let's get
Yeah,
into this news and knock it out.
yeah. Well, I didn't see what I was watching, but just real quick,
Oh yeah,
I'm just in,
sorry.
yeah,
I'm blanking
yeah.
out.
I'm just how much of a comfort food thing this has been. I've literally seen 6 seasons of Arrow.
Oh yeah, you were rewatching that.
And rewatching it, and it goes to show that right now I feel like I'm not feeling like watching anything new in this dark and dire times. I feel like the comfort food has
Yeah.
been working for me, and yeah, people I know, The Office is y'all's comfort food. Arrow is my comfort food. so yeah, yeah, 6 seasons. I'm so close to finishing. I'm kind of
So Alejandro, I
sad
gotta
that like,
ask now. I know you were saying this earlier when you were at the very beginning of all this. Is it still much better as a cohesive unit than it did as like individual seasons?
yes, absolutely. Because I am noticing how much like some things that are mentioning
Hmm.
based on how the series ends had been like sprinkled throughout so many different seasons. Because the ultimate theme of that show is the main character sacrifice
Hmm.
and how he evolved from a stone cold murderer to the savior of the universe, basically.
Mm.
And him always like being like trying always trying to move forward from what his past was and what he ended up being and how he changed everything, and seeing kind of like his struggles with his family as he becomes a father later into the show and all of that. It's like it really goes back to show you how like a really strong thematically rich final season can really recontextualize everything.
Mm.
Even like some of the things that I thought originally were not my favorite, like the third season is much better in hindsight. The fourth season is still the weakest because it's the closest the show got into becoming a soap opera,
Yeah.
and it sucks. Because here's what sucks about that fourth season is probably the closest the character became the Green Arrow of the comics, with like the suit a little bit more of a lighthearted tone, because he had that's the only suit that he had sleeveless, and that's how Green Arrow is
Right.
in the comics. And then he decided to run for mayor and become like a beacon of hope for the city, but then like that season got too bogged down with like a secret melodrama with like a kid that they didn't know that he had with an old fling, and he didn't, and the old fling forced forced Green Arrow to not say anything to his at the time girlfriend, and they had gotten engaged, and then they found out the engagement. She gets paralyzed,
What?
and then yeah, the girlfriend gets paralyzed in an attack, but then she gets injected with a with a nano chip in her back that will allow her to walk again. But then that chip only becomes active when they're breaking up. So she literally stands up after being paralyzed to just walk away from him. It's like
What?
incredibly, yeah, it's horrible. It sounds horrible. Yeah,
That's
yeah. So
ridiculous.
yeah, so that was the fourth season, and it's so sad that like it became so much about like like a soapy melodrama, because what's so cool about Arrows when it's actually a vigilante show. I linked a video in our chat about that fight that I told you about the series finale, because I was in an Instagram live with one of the actresses from Arrow from the final season, which is also the main actress from Shadowhunters, Catherine McNamara, kind of like what I was mentioning.
Oh yeah,
So I sent her a question about her favorite memories with one of the best directors of that show, James Bamford,
yeah. Hmm.
and some of the answers that she made just made me realize how it makes sense based on that scene that I linked. I don't know if you
I
saw
did
it.
not get to
I,
see it, but I really want to go back because you were really
you need to
hyping
see it, because even PJ, who is not a fan of these shows, he literally texted "Whoa" when he
it
saw that. When he said, because you have to see that fights, and like when the show like really did really cool, when it was like a vigilante action show,
yeah.
like it like that's the thing. And just rewatching that is like you take the good with the bad, but like by the show ending so good, you take more the good and don't get too hung up on the bad. And I feel that's a good sign of that things were left in a really good spot.
Mm.
Because if things had left in a Game of Thrones style final season, what do people think about that show now?
Whew. Yeah,
All the
it would
bad
have
stuff, like
lost everything.
yeah, everything has been like retroactively made worse. And so yeah, it's been rewarding watching all those 6 seasons. Even like having suffered through the fourth season makes it worth it, because then the fifth season is probably the best season of that show, because it was both a great comeback
Hmm.
and like a culmination of the first 5 years of that show, because it's like a dual. And initially, the show is a dual storyline. You follow him in the present, but then you see his origin through 5 years while he was in desertion, and how like he
Uh,
became the Green Arrow. And those flashbacks were really cool. And then they kind of sucked for a little bit, but then they became really cool, and then closed it out really well in that fifth season. And then the sixth season starts building towards how everything ends on the eighth. So yeah, it's like I really for all its flaws, like it's really making me realize why I still like that show so much, and why I'm glad that it's my comfort food show in this midst of COVID-19.
hmm,
So let's see if I finish the series by the time we record next time.
right.
And real quick,
Uh-huh.
I just as an addendum, something that I've been listening to you. Do you know the actor Michael Rosenbaum?
Michael Rosenbaum. It doesn't sound familiar, but maybe I'll know.
Okay, so he played Lex Luthor on Smallville.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so and he was a comedy actor and all that. He has a podcast called Inside of You.
Inside.
So yeah, Inside of You. So what he does is that he interviews actors, but he doesn't really interview them about their work. They interview them about their life, about kind of like this like about their personal life.
Hmm.
And it's really cool here getting to hear a lot of actors, because he interviewed Stephen Amell,
Hmm.
which is the who plays Oliver Queen on Arrow. He's had him twice in the show, and the last time he had him in his show, Stephen Amell literally had a panic attack in the middle of his show,
What?
because Stephen Amell was like dealing through the psychology that his show had just ended,
Oh.
and that he never rested as the show went, because you should see that dude was ripped throughout 8 seasons. He did like a lot of his own stunts. He was always in shape and all that, completely restless and all that. And that podcast was like such a huge, like it makes you realize how hard some actors really work,
Mm,
and you don't really realize the emotional toll some of these things are, because we only see what's on screen, and we only follow their personal lives just from what they show in social media. So hearing that, like that podcast, it was like the 97th episode that he did.
mm.
It's like an hour and 30 minutes. You should listen to it. Like Stephen Amell sounds broken,
Dang.
like yeah, he sounds broken, and he literally had a panic attack halfway through the show. And apparently he had to come back 3 weeks later to record the second half of that podcast, and he wanted to record it
Wow.
and wanted him to show that that can happen, which goes to show mental health is it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
And you don't really, and then you realize like, yeah, he gave 80 years of his life to that, to being in shape for that show. And I just can't imagine how like it feels when people have been there for so long, and then that stops becoming their reality. So
Hmm.
I would recommend people to listen to that show. Like Michael Rossman's a great interviewer. He's funny. He goes deep. It's like it's a very cathartic podcast, and he has
Yeah.
so many different actors.
You said
Zachary
Michael
Levi,
Rosenbaum's Inside of You.
inside of you. Yeah,
Okay, I pulled it up just now, and that was they got some definitely interesting people. Yeah, Stephen Amell. Golly, the picture they used for him, he just looks broken.
yeah. That's what, that's what I tell you. Like,
Okay.
yeah, and because and you have to like give it to him. Like he really gave it his all
Yeah.
during that show. Like even in the show's weakest periods, he was always the anchor. So yeah, it's I give it a listen
Oh,
for anyone listen to that. Yeah, me plugging another podcast, but yeah, Michael Rosenbaum really did a good dude. I'm really glad that he's doing that, because it's a different kind of flavor of podcast. You usually listen for interviews just to hear about the work. He asks about that work, but then he goes deep. He asks him about his stories, about their upbringings and all that, and like it really puts things in perspective.
yeah.
Yeah.
He
So
got
yeah,
all
now
the
I'm
characters from Supernatural, like one after the
yeah.
other, too. Crispin Glover.
Hmm.
He got a lot of people.
Yeah, Crispin Glover, who played uh
Marty McFly's
Marty
dad.
McFly's father. Yeah. So he got Kristen Bell from the good. That you should listen to the Kristen Bell episode, because you wouldn't expect that Kristen Bell also had gone through some really weird crap,
Oh yeah,
and that was
I
yeah.
definitely would want to see that because that's Elizabeth's favorite actress,
Kristen Bell, yeah.
which
So-
is crazy.
and also you should listen to Tom Welling, who played Clark Kent in Smallville, and hearing their stories.
I'm definitely.
He had them twice in the show also, and Zachary Levi, who played Chuck, and also Shazam.
Hmm.
He had him twice there.
Yeah, I'm starting to like as I go further into his like backlog, I see a lot of these recognizable people that I remember, even with me not watching a lot of movies or TV shows.
Yeah, and also Catherine McNamara was twice there. Also,
Hmm.
she was early in the show. She was also recently after the Stephen Amell episode, and that girl was 24 years old, and she graduated at 14. Paul, she was 14 years old when she graduated from high school, and she graduated from college at 17, and she tells that story. Yeah, you should listen to it. It's a really cool podcast. It's chill, and and it provides a lot of catharsis during this time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to check that out for sure.
All
All
right,
right, well,
so
let's
yeah,
sing.
yeah, that's probably the longest what have we been played, seen, or hearing from a
Really
while. But
though,
yeah, but hey, it's
we knocked
we've
that
been
one out.
off for a while. So yeah, and the last episode was relatively short, so we're making up for time.
Also true.
Yeah,
So,
so Paul, it's a big a lot in the 12
so
days
much.
since the road of PS5 garbage of a stream. It's time for you to press X.
For some news.
Dun, 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 dun.
I don't even know what you sing each time, but hey, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. So
All right.
we had the quote unquote Nintendo Direct Mini come out on what was it, the 26th still?
March
Yeah,
26th, when it said it
right when they
happened
said
back
it
in
would.
the adventure. And, but just a little context because, Nintendo usually announces
Officially.
Direct
Yeah.
a day before. On the 25th, they had said nothing.
Hmm.
And the poor guy that reported on VentureBeat, his name's Jeff Grubb, when he wrote the article about the two directs, the indie direct that ended up happening, a day after from when he said that it was going to happen, but it ended up happening. So he got it right. Uh, and then this one, but when there was like no when there was like no news from Nintendo at all from like their social media,
Hmm.
people were coming at this guy.
Oh,
They were like,
jeez.
it was hilarious, like because people wouldn't stop asking him for it. They were bringing his credibility into chat. Like they were challenging his credibility and trying to ruin the reputation just because he's mentioned that there was going to be a direct on the 26th and this was the 25th and Nintendo didn't say anything. And ironically, the only thing that Nintendo announced on the 25th was that Super Punch Out was available on Switch
Right?
Online.
That people
And then
thought
when they
that's what it
said
was
that,
going to be.
and then he was like, "Yo," and then and then he tweeted a gif of "well shit,"
Uh-huh.
and then everyone started like posting him like the memes of like the SpongeBob mob coming at him
Yeah,
and all
really.
that. And then later than that, he doubled down saying, "It's happening tomorrow.
Right.
It's happening." And then people are like, "You're dying on this hill." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm dying on this hill," and it
I
happened.
mean, it was
Kinda.
gutsy. He must have gotten some confirmation from his inside source. But I'm
Oh yeah.
honestly glad because I hate when people come after people like that. And he's
Hmm.
given us a service out here. Like, we wouldn't have known any of this for both the Indie Direct or this one until it would have just dropped on us.
Exactly. And let's not forget that people had been starving
Yeah.
for a true Nintendo Direct that wasn't just a game specific one like the Smash reveal,
Hmm.
the Animal Crossing one, or even the indie one, which the more I get away from the indie one, the more I appreciate it
Really,
because
though.
I'm really realizing that the games that we mentioned last in our last episode are games that are actually they feel like the kind of games I would like to play right
Yeah.
now. Quickie and
Throw a
so
couple
yeah,
bucks at it.
exactly. So he nailed it and he didn't because yes, a Nintendo Direct happened on the 26th, finally, 200 plus days after the last Direct. However, this wasn't a Direct, it was a Direct Mini,
Now, like, they call it a
which
mini,
is
but it
weird.
was 30 minutes long.
Exactly, yeah. So
And they had
I
so much
feel
stuff they announced.
exactly. So I feel that what happened there was that yes, there was always a plan for a Nintendo Direct, But usually, they when they usually call them mini is because they're announcing a bunch of stuff that's not from first party, but they have a lot of announcements. I remember that's how they announced Dark Souls Remastered back in February 2018,
Oh wow.
if I remember correctly. That was a month before the Nintendo Direct that announced Smash on March 2018. So that's usually how they label it. What this tells me is that this was a direct that probably had first party output
Hmm.
more than the one that they had, because let's face it, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which just to kind of start reading a little bit from kind of what was announced starting it up. That is a game made by Monolith, which is kind of like a second party relationship with Nintendo.
Hmm.
So it's not owned by Nintendo, but they make a lot of games for Nintendo. And actually, Monolith Software actually they actually worked in Breath of the Wild with Nintendo. They led their development chops to them, which is why it has a little bit more RPG modernity when you play Breath of the Wild compared to other Zeldas.
Hmm.
It's still a remaster of a 2012 game that came out on Wii.
Yeah.
That's literally the only first party game of consequence that they announced at that
At
direct.
least
Because
full
then,
game itself,
yeah,
not like an expansion or something.
yeah, exactly. It was a full game, and the thing is that that thing had already been announced before. They just gave it a date. So from like a quote unquote exclusive for Nintendo, that was just that. So I believe that they probably had first party games that they had to pull out of this thing, but they had all this thing because when you have a first party thing and then you add all the things that they announced, that's like a normal direct. That's literally a
Yeah,
normal direct. So
basically.
them
I don't know why they
bringing
thought.
it down to them bringing it down to a mini was just kind of like for like the tangential stuff. But you can also the direct started with the message about the COVID-19. So you can you can really infer that this virus has really affected their development pipeline in
Right.
some way, shape, or form, in a way that they would probably didn't want to announce anything in the fear, because a lot of developers are working from home now, and that's gonna like really slow down a lot of development.
Hmm.
So that's why it was a mini. So they was like it was interesting. The direct itself, what do you think, Paul?
I like, as I've told you before, it didn't have a lot of stuff that was for me, but I know it has a lot of stuff for some people out there that would really like it. Like all the 2K games coming to
Mm-hmm.
the Switch with BioShock, Borderlands,
XCOM
XCOM,
and X-Men.
the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 DLC. Because I know a lot of people still love Fantastic Four. They wanted more out of that
Yeah.
game.
And also, just to provide context, this is actually the first story DLC for Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. It's actually the third expansion pack from a $20 expansion pass that they released. They did the Marvel Knights, if I remember correctly. Well, I don't remember what was the other team that they did. Those are just like character skins and some challenges. It seemed like there was actually a story here with Doctor Doom, so that's actually a bigger deal than people realize.
Huh. I didn't even realize how big of a deal it was
Mhm,
before. I think
mhm.
the other one was the Black. Shoot, not that. Dark Phoenix. Was that it? Curse of the
Yeah,
Vampire
X
was
Men.
the
Yeah,
other one.
it's X Men, Marvel. It was X Men, Marvel Knights, and Fantastic Four.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Let me get back to this. Okay, so yeah, we got that handled. Excuse me. They had the probably the only thing that I thought, well, I might actually play was that little 2D exploration game, Into the Depths,
Mhm.
and that seemed really cute. Just walking around underwater trying
The
to
things that,
explore.
from what I understand, it's like a Metroidvania style exploration
It
game,
does seem like a
and you're
deep, like,
and you already told me how you are about a
yeah,
Metroidvanias.
I probably won't. It just seemed cute, like, and interesting on the at a glance. But if the more I find out about it, it's possible that I might not be as interested. I just love things that where they explore underwater. I feel like there's not enough games that do that. One big thing that they spent a lot of time on was Bravely Default 2.
Hmm.
Talking in
Which was
depth.
previously announced. Which was previously announced.
Okay, I guess that's news to me because honestly that went over my head because I never really cared about Bravely Default.
Hmm.
So it's nice that I got to see some more details of it out of curiosity.
Hmm.
Ninjala, the battle royale ninja game that is a weird mix of Splatoon and Naruto.
Hmm.
I thought it looks really fun. but I mean, I'm not going to spend full price on it, so we'll see what happens with that. But I see,
Good luck because
you know what?
Nintendo doesn't drop
Actually,
prices.
hold up. I feel like somebody told me that was actually free.
You should double check on that one. That I'm not
Yeah,
interested in that,
it's
but
an upcoming free to play multiplayer action video game.
there
So
you go.
that's
Then you
going to
can
come
actually
out
try it.
this year in May. So I'm definitely
Hmm.
going to check that out and try it because it just looked fun to like traverse the buildings, run up the walls, and be fighting with people and stuff. It's kind of the idea of what they did with the Naruto Shinobi Strikers, and it was basically that. It was a multiplayer ninja game where you made your own character and you fought in their universe. It had like matches and stuff, capture the flag. It seemed fun, but I just wasn't going to spend money on it. The next big thing they had was the Star Wars Jedi Academy. They announced that was coming out that day on March 26th. Um,
Which, for context, is exactly the same thing that happened back on the last true Nintendo Direct on
for Jedi
September 4th,
Knight.
2019 for Jedi Knight Jedi Outcast.
Hmm.
So that goes to show you this was a true Direct that they repurposed as a mini.
I don't know why they did that. All I can think of is because they didn't have a physical person standing there talking about it, because that's
Hmm.
usually what they do. But this time it was just like a voiceover. I don't know why
It's
they got.
probably why they it's just a mini.
Yeah, that's all I can think of is the why they changed the name of it. But anyway, one of the issues that has arisen with the Star Wars Jedi Academy, unfortunately, is that it seems to be operating on crossplay without most people's realizing of that, because of course Jedi Academy is still available on PC now. It's on PS4, Switch, and everything, which is kind of interesting that they chose to talk about that on the Switch Nintendo Direct. Anyway, the issue mainly is that PC players are logging into the servers of the Switch port and are crushing people in the multiplayer aspects because, of course, the PC version has been out for a very long time, and all these people just buying it on the Switch. I've either never played the game or they're just starting it back up, trying to get used to the controls and everything, and they're getting thrashed by the PC master race that once again feels like they have to control and ruin everything about everybody else's lives. The reason why this is actually is because the code for the server is clearly displayed on the Switch. So if a PC person wants to go into that, all they have to do is type it into their server browser, and it's
You
not
just go
even
in
really
and
a
wreck
hack.
people.
Wait, say that again.
Yeah, and then just PC players going there to wreck
Oh,
people up.
absolutely. And I can only imagine what that looks like. They said it was one guy just destroying an entire team because that honestly that's how important it is to be aware and of like your techniques and what you're able to do. I remember playing that a little bit for the Jedi Outcast mod movie battles, and they of course like overhauled the whole combat system in that, but the idea is still the same, is that once you understand these certain things that don't really get explained to you very well, you are a god amongst men, and you can do so many things. I've watched so many YouTube videos of people doing things in that game that I didn't think was possible, and when you can do that, um, there's nothing that a whole team can do against you. You can just block everything. You can hit everybody in just the right ways to avoid their lightsabers. It's a
Mhm.
nightmare.
Yeah, and also for people to just to clarify, some people, this is not just on Switch; it's also on PS4, and it came out on the same day.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
And
so
I would love to go back and play it personally on the PS4 again because I really enjoyed Jedi Academy, making your own character, doing your own lightsaber fights. It's just so fun.
but there was also very exciting news that happened at the same time that they announced that Jedi Academy thing, and this one like warmed up my nostalgia buttons.
Yeah. When what was that, Alejandro?
Star Wars Racer,
Yes.
Episode One Racer.
Now I don't think I played this one honestly. Was this a PS1
Yeah,
game?
yeah, it's a PS1 and N64 game.
That's
I
why.
played it on
Okay. You
N64.
know what? I think
It
I
was
did
one of
play
the
it once.
Yeah, it was one of the coolest games to play, like in multiplayer.
Hmm.
There, like around that, it was around that time where there was so many Star Wars games.
Yeah,
It came out around. It was Rogue Squadron. There was Shadows of the Empire, and there was
Rogue
also Star Wars
Squadron.
Racer.
So beautiful.
I would die for a Rogue Squadron to make a comeback,
Like an
just for
actual like remake. not just a
Yeah,
re-release. Oh my goodness, if you could just
I'll take a re-release. I would take a re-release at this point
I
if that's
would,
what.
but I just imagine like the mechanics and visuals of the Battlefront 2 Star Wars battles, but if it's all about that so they could really focus on it. Oh my
It would be
goodness.
amazing. Yeah. So, and just to move on from just before we get too
Yeah,
caught up in Star Wars
true
stock,
that.
because other stuff were also
There's so
like
much
Panzer Dragoon, the Panzer Dragoon remake, which is the closest we're gonna get to a Star Fox style game.
right.
I think that's available
I
now,
think
if
it
I'm not
might be.
mistaken. Yeah. So
And then let me think.
just
There's not too much else that was really special about coming out of that, except for maybe the Pokemon.
mhm, yeah, which who cares? I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, you might not, but at least for
I
everybody
know.
else, and
Exactly. If it's for the Pokemon, for the 10 Pokemon fans out there, this is for you. I'm just kidding. I know it sold millions. It's like that thing sold like 16 million in
right.
like 2 months. There's a lot of people that was of great interest.
In
I'm not one of them.
in
So
all
as soon as
honesty,
as soon as the Pokemon started thing, I literally shut down the direct. I was like,
uh,
I'm good.
so I'll explain for you then if you since you shut it down, they're explaining that it's an entire island that you get to explore. You get a whole plot line where it is basically where they all go to train in a martial arts to get the person and their Pokemon as strong as possible. They give you a new Pokemon named Cub Fu, and he's like a little bear with a headband, and he's adorable. He learns martial arts moves, and then one of the things is you go through one of two towers. You can only choose one, the Tower of I think darkness and the Tower of Water. And you, depending on which one you do, it evolves the Pokemon, and he learns a specific style, either the I think single strike style or the rapid fire style, and he learns different moves and a different like mega attack based on what he does. And honestly, he looks pretty cool as well. So I thought it was
I
awesome.
think I remember what PJ mentioned. What he liked about the idea of this expansion is that Game Freak is not doing their usual bullshit. That they re-release the game, and that's when they put in the new content. But you have
Oh
to
yeah, yeah,
rebuy the
yeah.
whole game again. Now it's actually doing expansion, which I wouldn't have put it past them, especially because let's not forget that when this Pokemon launched, there was a huge uproar by the fan base that it was half baked and all that sort of stuff. That they intentionally rushed it
Yeah.
out. They had like all those like visual problems and the T posing of the Pokemon on the just on the normal exploration mode in the world. All that's it. There was that uproar,
Hmm.
and I could have easily been like, yeah, being them, because Game Freak has always done this, they will re-release the game. We have to buy it again, and that's when they're gonna put all the new stuff. The fact that they're just adding to this one makes them better guys in my book,
Right.
because that's not how they usually operate. It's kind of nice.
I do agree that it's nice that they're only putting out exactly what you want and you can pay for what you want rather than having to buy a whole new game. I think there's maybe a better way they could have done that if they wanted to be more consumer friendly, but this is Nintendo. I'm not expecting them to be consumer friendly.
Exactly.
So,
Like I kind of mentioned, you there's still some games that came out in 2017 that are still $60. So
exactly.
they are really really stingy in bringing down those prices, which is why I don't buy most of their games usually. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so overall, this direct, for what it was, I'm glad that there was a direct. The fact that they waited this long before they did one of these didn't help their case,
No.
because like I mentioned, the last Nintendo Direct was September 4th, 2019. Then 200 days passed before like they could even mention anything about what their lineup would be. And what this direct actually said was that at the very least they have some games there for people to buy, at least all the way up until May.
Hmm.
Usually when they do a direct, which is usually in March, they drop big bombs that carry them all the way to November, because this is what's actually coming.
Hmm.
And what this tells me is that COVID really screwed them
Yeah.
over. Really screwed them over if they're not confident of announcing what is happening later. And I believe tomorrow, because we're recording on March 30th, which is Mario Day.
Yes.
Yeah, which is actually kind of relevant. That something kind of came up from some sources
All right.
about this specific day. They literally have nothing of true announcement. I feel they're gonna eat a lot of crap in front of the investors. for at least the next fiscal year. Because what do you see here that would be worth for investors to invest
Right.
other than a remake of a 2012 game, an exclusive from Square Enix that it's a relatively smaller RPG, and then a bunch of games that, with the exception of just a few, have been games that you could have played already in another platform, and just probably the novelty of playing a lesser version of that game in the go would be appealing, i.e., the Bioshock Collection,
Mhm.
Borderlands 2, or XCOM 2. Uh,
You know
all
what?
games,
I
by the
don't know
way.
why, but I think I would be far more interested as an investor in the next thing that we had to talk about. If you wanted to jump into that,
Yes, but you just have to be. I have to be like preface this that this is from sources. So
right? It's not
this
officially
not coming
announced.
directly from Nintendo, but usually these people when they do sources, and these are actual journalists from their respective sites, like Eurogamer.
Hmm.
Um, they might be true, and the thing is that maybe that's their ace in the hole, that they're just gonna mention that that's happening, and they don't have to do like a big thing because of the nature of these things. I agree with that,
Hmm.
especially if that's what will carry them. And that will actually be a really exciting thing because those things sell by itself. But at the time, on March 26th, when we saw this direct, and I saw that's what they had, I'm like, woof, 2020 is going to be a bleak year for them. And that's not good.
Yeah,
So, but the good news is that thank God for sources and all these journalists,
true.
because this next item,
Maybe,
so fitting for it to happen in Mario Day.
yes. Well, so I found out Mario Day is March 10th.
Yeah, I think it was March 30th, but
Yeah, that's why it's Mario with spelled with a
uh-huh.
one and a zero.
Yeah, I don't know about
So yeah,
people.
we're a little
Yes,
behind on that, but hey,
yeah, we're a little
COVID is
behind on that.
just
Yeah,
throwing us all out the window.
exactly.
Time is a social construct. So anyway, yes, we have found out that Mario games are on their way, specifically both remasters and some new games to the Switch. We have confirmed named Mario Galaxy, Mario
Mm-hmm.
64, and Super Mario Sunshine. They have listed
Mm-hmm.
specifically as coming to the Switch. And I'm
Uh-huh.
personally most excited about either Galaxy or Sunshine because I am just
Yeah,
all for that. But they said that's
exactly.
not all that is coming. That's just all that we know of right now.
Not only that, Super Mario 3D World, one of the last
Yes, that one
bastions
too.
of the Wii U. Probably
It's
the
getting
last
re-released
big.
again.
Yeah, I don't know, it never got re-released.
Well, it was like a 3D, and then it had like a new version of 3D still on the Wii U.
No,
It
no,
had like a
here's the thing,
3DS.
because there's the Super Mario 3D Land was a 3DS version. Then
Right.
the Super Mario 3D World on Wii U was a different game, a bigger game. and then
Oh,
and then that game got stranded there on the Wii U since 2013,
right.
and because it was a time when literally no one had the Wii U, and that was the year that the PS4 and Xbox One launched.
Yeah.
That game launched a week after the PS4 and Xbox One were already on shelf, and it barely moved units. Knack oversold it,
Oh,
which is
are you
tragic.
serious?
Yeah, Knack oversold Super Mario 3D World, which goes to tell you what a disaster the Wii U was.
That is
And it sucks because that game's actually really amazing. I played it. I played it on Wii U at a friend's place, and it's so good. And I've been ever since they have been slowly trickling back in Wii U games into the Switch.
hmm
That was one of the last ones, and I'm like, when is it coming? Because I felt like the last two big ones were that one and Pikmin 3, because of all these
Oh, I'd
rumors
love
that
to
Pikmin.
get Pikmin on the Switch.
Yeah, and because there's been rumors that Pikmin 4 has been in development for a while, and it's been like always rumored whenever direct is always kind of coming up.
Hmm.
But 3D World was the one that was like, man, we're only missing because we got Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe,
That's what I'm
which
thinking
is
of.
the
Okay.
new Super Mario Bros. U. Yeah, that's the one that was the launch game on Wii U. That also there was the DS and 3DS and Wii version of
Right.
those games, which is the side scroller, and you can get that art style on Mario Maker also.
Hmm.
Uh, that whenever that one came out, I'm like, they they better like 3D World has to be coming, especially like it has to be.
Right.
And at this point, if that one actually releases, which based on the sources, I usually trust them. Remember when Horizon Zero Dawn was leaked by sources?
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, so and then it was confirmed,
Excuse
and it was so I believe it will happen, and then by that point, then there's only missing Pikmin 3, and personally for me,
me.
it'll be Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD. The Wii U versions of those
I
games
was
are
just
still,
thinking about that
yeah,
recently.
because like the thing about this, if they're gonna do this for Mario, they're releasing all those big games to kind of like because of the 30, because they're like the sources mention that this is because of the 35th anniversary
Right.
of Mario, and that makes sense. Which also, by the way, they say that apparently a new Paper Mario in the old style
Did hear
is
about
coming
that.
back. Yeah, and I would love, because I love Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door on GameCube. It was a great RPG,
Hmm.
such a fun game, and one of my favorite Christmas memories because I got that game for Christmas 2004. I'll never forget it. Uh, and yeah, it's I Mario is my favorite Nintendo thing. Zelda's my second favorite one. Uh, my memories for Mario are such that a Mario game is always one of like it's an event for me. I love playing through them. Even Odyssey, I freaking loved Odyssey.
Hmm.
It's not my favorite Mario. The more I think about it, but I really loved it. The Galaxy, remembering playing Galaxy for the first time and also
Hmm.
its sequel was magical. Sunshine grew on me a lot. I know Parker hates it.
I don't know why he
Like
does, honestly.
I don't know why he does. I freaking love that game. I played it recently on GameCube recently. Last year when I did my GameCube binge, when I found my GameCube games on my Wii still working. Uh, so if they're doing these things for Mario, whenever we get to the Zelda anniversary,
Oh,
is that how they're gonna justify like just bringing porting up Wind Waker and Twilight Princess?
I would love that.
Because I feel like the Switch deserves to have all Zelda games in it.
I would
It
say
absolutely deserves
all of them
having
for
them.
sure. Like
Yeah.
it can handle all of it. Can you imagine putting out like a whole collection of everything from like
Hmm.
the oracles, the ocarina, the Majora's Mask, the even like Skyward Sword would work with the motion controls if you really wanted it to.
Yes, and I feel like the only possibility for that game is the fact that they like Switch games to be mobile. But Ring Fit Adventure shows that they don't care. I feel they're with that Ring Fit Adventure show that they're willing to like strand a game just to console,
Hmm.
so that will work. And I feel Skyward Sword deserves a little bit of an extra chance because it was a game so overlooked by the time that it came out. It was the Wii was basically dead,
It was really
even
a
though it
fun
had
game too.
yes and no.
I will fight you on this. I'll just
I don't like Skyward Sword that much. Um, I said like I hated the combat. I love the story because I
you
love
love the
how
story.
yeah, I thought it was it's the most thoughtful story in the Zelda because of how like it tries to contextualize everything,
Hmm.
and especially compared to Breath of the Wild that barely has any story. That's the one leg up I'll give to Skyward Sword,
Yeah,
and also for introducing the stamina meter in some
true.
interesting ways because that's how you use some of the puzzles. But I don't know if it was my Wii Motion Plus, but I hated seeing that thing getting always uncalibrated, and I read around that that was a common problem.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it just happened the longer you did it, but there was always a button you could do to recenter everything in a second.
yeah, but that to me is just too that's way too annoying to always have to be worrying about that. And I really hated the variety there was in the game. There were like only three main areas, and then you repeat those areas three times.
Yeah, I'll give you
It yeah, so those were the things when I went, and when you have to repeat that big fat boss that's like climbing the circle,
that. Oh, yeah, no, I did.
and then the final boss fight, that's like the proto Ganon.
I
It
didn't
was
really mind that one, if I'm
yeah,
remembering it right.
it was hard in the way of because of the controller woes I was having. It
Yeah.
shouldn't have been as hard as I was hoping it would be. That's why I say that I feel the motion control of the Joy-Con
Mm,
is probably stronger than the one on the Wii. I can't confirm nor deny that.
I
I would have to
gotcha.
like really test it, but I feel that could give it a leg up in trying to reintroduce that game to a lot of people.
Hmm.
So,
I think if they just
but yeah.
updated some of the mechanics of it, because I think I had more trouble with that sword fight with the guy that started with the letter G. I can't remember his name.
Mhm.
But yeah, I Gary him. I think I just had a lot of trouble because like you would telegraph your attack, you had to move it the other direction. But if you moved a little too fast, your sword would think you were slashing, and that was a pain. But besides that, I did have a lot of fun, and there are a couple of bosses that could come to mind right
Yeah,
now.
it's a good game. I'll
Yeah.
give it at that. If I even had to
But
rate
in
it, I
any
would give it
case,
a
yeah, we're getting a little sidetracked.
yeah. We're
Just the
getting to the
idea.
Wii. Yeah, just the idea of but to me, it's a 7.5 Zelda. To me, like if I would have to score it,
Yeah.
uh, it's still a good game. I prefer playing Twilight Princess or Wind Waker personally, especially because Wind
Yeah.
Waker is magical. Wind Waker's magic.
Wind Waker's amazing.
Yeah, and I feel like it would be an easy port.
Oh,
Like
definitely. I feel like
it
everything
wouldn't
in
be that
the Wii U
hard. Yeah.
version should all you'd have to really do is just change up the controls at the top, and you could throw it right in there, and I would
I would
play
even
it.
say you wouldn't have to change the controls at the top. They're all there. Like the Wii U had both the shoulder buttons. It had the exact same layout of the Y, X,
You
B,
know, that's
A,
true.
and like everything is there. The only difference that the Wii U version of those games had was the touch screen
Right.
at the bottom that allowed you to like swap items quicker. So those games on Switch could technically be a little bit of a step back, technically, but it wouldn't matter.
But you'd have Wind
Because
Waker on the go.
yeah, exactly. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on the Go would be phenomenal
Hmm.
because Wind Waker's story is magical. The feel of everything is magical. Screw the fetch quest at the end with the Triforce pieces, but they
Oh
improved that on the Wii U version. Um, Twilight Princess, I stand by it, has some of the best dungeons of any Zelda ever.
yeah. Hmm.
Twilight Princess is bogged down by its overly long opening.
Yeah.
So
I hated that, but
yeah, that's like the only problem that game has. But when you hit the dungeons, those games are they have masterful
that
dungeons.
and the fact Zelda didn't have a personality in that one. But
Mhm. Exactly. So and then Midna, I love Midna. I love the personality of your companion in that one.
oh
So yeah, but we kind of strayed a little bit on that one. Uh, I'm just excited just for the idea of the Mario getting this remastered treatment if so many sources are confirmed because it's not just one source.
oh no.
Bunch of them confirmed it individually and it kind of kept adding and all of that. And whenever Eurogamer reports something, I believe them because they also reported something that we're gonna mention later.
Hmm.
So and they reported it initially. So the fact that it's also coming through, it kind of goes to show that they're actual legit journalists that you should listen to. So having those Mario games, and if they like during the investor meeting that they're gonna have, they're like, "Oh yeah, we haven't mentioned this, but this is what we're having for the rest of the year," and they mentioned that. I feel that saves 2020 for them.
Yeah, I think that would
He's gonna
definitely
say
help.
that'll save them enough. It would still be a garbage year for them, technically,
Hmm.
like compared to 2019 and 2017. It's interesting how the Switch is going in lulls. 2017, amazing. The Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, and Mario Kart, and Splatoon, and Arms, and all the games started coming out. Even Skyrim came out that year. Uh,
Oh yeah,
for the
I forgot they put
and
that on the
Doom
Switch.
and Doom 20, that was 2017.
Yeah.
Then 2018 was really quiet and actually 2018 got saved by Mario Party and Smash near the end.
Hmm.
That's what saved them. And then 2019, banger after banger. Link's Awakening, Astral Chain, Mario Maker
Uh,
2,
Demon X Machina.
Luigi's. Yeah, exactly. The X Machina, yeah, it was okay, but it was like a game they had.
Yeah.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3.
Hmm.
Um, they had Luigi's Mansion 3.
Oh yeah.
Like they had a
Pokemon.
lot of bangers. Yeah, yeah. So that was 2019,
Yeah.
and 2020 has been Animal Crossing.
Yeah. I mean, it's
And
still not even halfway through the year, so I.
exactly, but by the beginning of 2019, we knew what was coming for the Switch, a lot of it. So that's why it was looking a little dire. But now with this Mario thing, man, that's gonna make me replay my Switch so much. You have no idea. I need my Mario again.
Well,
I need it.
I think we covered just about all we needed on this one. Alejandro,
Mhm.
let's jump into the other fun. things involving the viruses. Um,
Hmm.
Sony and Microsoft have continued insisting that COVID 19 is not going to delay the launch of their consoles, where everybody has kind of met it with complete doubt.
Hmm.
Because, of course, that's exactly what they would say until they don't, which is an almost
Hmm.
exact quote of one of the top
Exactly.
comments on there. Is they're going to say that up until the very last second, and then they're going to say yes, it's delayed if that's the case that they would go
And you know why it's funny that they're mentioning that right now?
with.
Tomorrow is also the end of their fiscal year.
Ah,
So
that's true. I
uh,
I really get thrown off by when fiscal years end and begin. Honestly,
yeah, it's always this weird thing, especially for many companies. The fiscal year starts on April 1st, which should be a joke, but it's not. So, so that's when the new fiscal year start, and then they always end on March 31st. And whenever you see a delay from the fall, you would rarely see it delay past March. If you notice that,
true.
like Doom was like originally November 22nd, and it got delayed till
In the March,
March 20th, which is as close as you can cut it
right?
for your fiscal for kind of for your fiscal stuff. And that tends to work well if you need a final coat of polish and if you still need those numbers. But then other times it works horribly. Look what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda. That
Oh
them releasing it on March 21st, 2017 was like because they needed that game for the fiscal year because they originally had mentioned that that was going to be their fall 2016
yeah.
big game, and then they pushed it back.
And then it still
Um,
sucked.
and it still sucked, and it could have used a little bit more time in the cooker.
Man, I was still
So that
thinking about that game just recently and how amazing it would have been if like their original vision had been met, where they had like
mhm,
20 planets, all sorts of different races you could visit and be with.
exactly an actual exploration,
Oh,
No Man's Sky.
that would have been great.
Yeah, but it was too, and that game is just it is a tragedy that it was like it was in development for 5 years, but only in actual development for 18 months.
Hmm.
Because in their pre-production they were stuck in development nightmare, which is something similar that happened to Anthem, which was worse because that was in 7 years. And they put it
Yeah,
together in just the last
we're
year.
we're not going to turn this into another Anthem debate, though.
No, exactly. It's bad. But going back to like fiscal, yeah. So yeah. Before we go into another tangent, the so it's interesting that they're all mentioning that, but we're getting close to the end of fiscal years.
Right.
So I would expect if things start to get worse, they will budge. But you know what I think could happen
What's it?
if if they don't make this fall or holiday 2020 like Microsoft keeps saying. Which, by the way, the last time that we recorded, there was like an erroneous tweet from the Microsoft account saying that the Xbox Series X was coming on Thanksgiving 2020,
I did
and
hear
then
about that, and then they said
and
that
then
it
they
was
updated it to
holiday.
holiday again. So
So I
so
don't know
yeah,
what that's
I think their intent is that because I feel they're intentionally trying to hit that because they know so many developers that have already shifted their resources
yeah.
towards those games, specifically towards specifically those games,
And
that they wouldn't want to screw them over.
right.
But my thing is that seeing how the economy has like taken a turn for the worse with all the shutdowns and everything that's been happening, and how we mentioned the US just recently have the highest number of cases for the virus. Even if the consoles release on time, who's gonna have money to buy them?
Yeah.
Because that's what I've been thinking about. It's like the economy, like a lot of people will have to like spend so much time rebuilding themselves before
Right.
they can have spending money again. And if they come up with these consoles that are like 600 or $500,
Nobody's gonna be able to buy them.
exactly. So
That's
why
something I
does
do
it
think
hurt
about.
them
Yeah.
to really, like, does it really hurt them to have to actually push to release that console during this holiday?
I think it just
Especially
depends on how heavily everybody gets hit by this, because there's some saying like, oh, in like a month or two we'll be done with it, and some are like, this is only the beginning, and it just depends on how doom and gloom you're feeling about it.
yeah. I'll just mention how a certain someone mentioned that they only had like 15 cases and they were gonna be at zero after a month, and now there's 100,000 cases, and you can watch video of that.
I mean,
And
granted, certain things said by certain individuals mean absolutely nothing.
exactly, but not when it comes from the very top, Paul. Just saying. And the fact that all of this was trying to be labeled as a hoax and it ended up not being, and it has actually affected the worldwide economy, goes to show you that it's like I feel they can't like be certain at 100% that things are just going to be back to normal by the time we reach the fall. Like it just can't be. Like um, just the fact that just recently more lockdowns have happened. It's why I just don't feel like the economy is just going to be restabilized by the time we reached November. I feel this is just going to have long term effects
Yeah.
that are going to be felt forever. Not forever, but like for a while, for a good while. It's not something that we can then just be like, oh yeah, we lived through that. Now back to normal. It's going to be like a slow restoration of things. Like this is the kind of disruption. I feel they're just saying this because they want investors to be feeling confident that they're investing on a new product. But I can see them pushing this to March 2021 if need be. And why I believe that? Because the Nintendo Switch also launched in March before the
March
fiscal year
7th,
ended,
was that it?
and it went well. It went relatively well. So I wouldn't put it past them. I can also envision a future where one of these consoles does delay and the other one doesn't.
That I
So,
can start to see that, honestly. I think it's a
and
game
if
of
on
chicken at this point.
exactly, and I feel the one that would want to release no matter what is actually Microsoft.
Yeah, but
I think
also I
that
feel like they're way closer to being finished.
exactly, especially with like how relatively quiet, even after the road to PS5, Sony has been with the PS5 still to this day.
Right.
Like they just Microsoft just feels like they got their ducks in a row and they're actually ready. The fact that they sent prototypes of those machines to YouTubers during that same week that this PlayStation 5 um 52-minute ASMR presentation happened.
ASMR
Uh,
presentation.
yeah,
You're not wrong, honestly.
yeah, and the fact that Microsoft, because remember Microsoft released that article 2 days before where they literally say almost the exact same thing that Microsoft said, that Sony said in 52 minutes. They did it in an article with like 1 minute videos
Hmm.
showing the point, and then having a lot of influencers kind of reinforcing their point. Um, the fact that they're already giving that kind of access to a console that supposedly is not even out,
Hmm.
but they're confident in the prototype to be sending it out, just shows that Microsoft really has been. That's why Microsoft has been like relatively slower with their release, with their first party release and all that, because you know where all their efforts went. Whereas Sony still has games for us, so that's why they've been a little slower at the trigger. Kind of bad. I don't want to rehash the last episode, my rant from last episode. I
Yeah.
just feel, I feel if one's gonna butch, it's gonna be Sony, just based on how things are going, and also because they're closer to the virus than Microsoft is. Microsoft
Also
is in the
true.
US, even though they manufacture in China. Sony is a Japanese company. It's a more worldwide company that now has centralized in Europe, and Europe has been hit hard also. So even though the machine is being manufactured in China and Foxconn, just kind of like the more worldwide nature of their business, it feels like they got hit harder.
True
So,
that.
so yeah, but yeah, we'll keep seeing like yeah, this despite all this virus, this next gen race to the launch is still happening, and I want to see who eats crow on the lace. So
True that.
I still my money is on Sony because they apparently are still confused about their own machine, considering this other update.
Yes.
So remember last week, Paul, when I went on a rant
Yeah.
about their backwards
Oh,
compatibility?
I remember.
Okay, so for anyone that just as a quick refresher for the previous episode where one of the big things that Mark Cerny was mentioning how like there was going to be backwards compatibility towards the PS4, and he mentioned something about a boost mode and how they tested the 100 most popular games on currently on PS4, and that they would be playable at launch.
Hmm.
And people were like, oh, so 100 of those games are going to have like the PS5 specific enhancements. But then the PlayStation blog said this: lastly, we're excited to confirm that the backwards compatibility features are working well. We recently took a look at the top 100 PS4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting almost all of them to be playable at launch on PS5. With more than 4,000 games published on PS4, we will continue the testing process and expand backwards compatibility coverage over time. When we read that last week, Paul,
Yep.
well, not last week, last episode, the impliance was that there was only going to be 100 games at launch, right?
Right.
Because they only tested that, which I said that was a complete and utter disaster compared to what Microsoft was going to be doing, which was allow your Xbox One library since 2013 to be playable there.
Hmm.
And how you were mentioning that, to be fair, The backwards compatibility. That's how Microsoft started back with the backwards compatibility in 2015. And I mentioned yes, but that was back in 2015, and Sony had 5 years to implement this, not to be able to start doing it with Microsoft. They started in 2015, so that created a huge uproar. Like the internet was aflame in a way I haven't seen, Paul, since the Xbox One always online DRM stuff.
Hmm.
That's eerie because I know whether we know how that went.
Yeah.
So they then issued an update, and here's I'm gonna read it. A quick update on backwards compatibility. With all the amazing games in PS4's catalog, we've devoted significant efforts to enable our fans to play their favorites on PS5. We believe that the overwhelming majority of the 4,000 plus PS4 titles will be playable on PS5. We're expecting backwards compatible titles will run at a boosted frequency on PS5 so that they can benefit from higher or more stable frame rates and potentially higher resolutions. We're currently evaluating games on a title by title basis to spot any issues that need adjustment from the original software developers. In his presentation, Mark Cerny provided a snapshot into the top 100 most played PS4 titles, demonstrating how well our backward compatibility efforts are going. We have already tested hundreds of titles and are preparing to test thousands more as we move toward launch. We will provide updates on backward compatibility along with much more PS5 news in the months ahead. Stay tuned. So,
Hmm.
that doesn't sound reassuring, right?
I mean, yeah, honestly, there's smart
Yeah.
people than me out here, so I don't even really
Yeah.
know what's going on anymore with that.
Yeah.
We're just gonna end up having to see what they're talking about, really, because
Yeah.
it just the way I hear it is that we don't have anything yet, but don't worry, it will
Hmm.
be.
Exactly. And that's my biggest worry of all.
Mm,
Before that presentation, back when the Wired articles happened and they mentioned backwards
yeah,
compatibility, I was so ready to sell my PS4 to be able to get a PS5 because they implied that the PS4 games were going to be compatible. By doing this kind of language,
yeah,
where not everything's going to be there, I'm not going to do that now.
hmm,
That really sucks. Because at least with the Xbox, I would be willing to sell my Xbox One and get a Series X because all those games will be there.
You know what it
Less
sounds
clutter.
like? It reminds me of when 360 came out and they said, "Oh yeah, Xbox games are going to be available for it, but not all of them." And the not all was a ton of games weren't able to be played on the 360.
Hmm.
And it took like several years. Honestly, no, they never actually improved any of them. If they said it wasn't good, it was just not going to happen. Um,
Hmm.
and that's what I'm kind of getting the same vibe from this, where it's like, yes, they'll work, they'll all work mostly, and
Hmm.
then like a handful work.
Exactly. And I think what sucks is like this wouldn't be a problem if the direct competitor wasn't doing such an amazing job
Hmm.
at bolstering a back catalog of games that respect your purchases,
Right.
respects your ecosystem, and invites you to stay in. By them being so vague about their plans with backwards compatibility and having to have this kind of whiplash where Mark Cerny mentions something that when you listen to it, it's like, okay, some of those are going to be boosted, and they tested it with them. This blog post kind of just confirming just the 100, those 100 games were going to be the ones available at launch.
Hmm.
Then what happened to everyone that has 300 plus games in their library, like I do?
Right.
Like,
Most of
are
them
those games like ruined? And then them then saying that we have tested hundreds of games, and we're hopefully they're going to be available to play on the PS5, but they don't even say at launch. So it's kind of like also almost like a double down of the fact that their backwards compatibility is going to be very limited,
are. Yeah.
which by the way is like that's a disaster considering how there are many games that are so persistent online are going to keep on going
Right.
um, even when these consoles launch, and not being able to play that on a PS5, it's just yeah, it's like it's I'm so crestfallen feeling that Sony's not respecting my commitment to their platform, and it makes me a little resentful.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And the truth is, if Microsoft wasn't doing this, I wouldn't feel as bad because we're like, oh, that's part for the course. The fact that Microsoft is actually doing an effort just shows that they have really put their money where their mouth is in
Hmm.
making the Xbox Series X the more inclusive platform for you to keep your memories of every game alive.
Right.
as possible. And the thing is that they said, and the thing is, Microsoft set the expectation. It's not that they have full backwards compatibility. There are many games that are still not compatible,
Hmm.
but they set an expectation that the system wasn't allowed to do that at first, and they made an effort. And now it's just red tape that's preventing your entire library from being there. But they were upfront about it.
Hmm.
You can complain, but they were upfront about what they're doing, and they worked really well at really expanding their backward compatibility catalog because that's the expectation they set. Sony's not setting that expectation, or they're setting it wrong, and just makes themselves look weaker than its competition. And I am really like I think it's getting to the point where I am envisioning me making the switch to Xbox for like multi-platform games, all of that, because they're respecting that, and then PlayStation will just be the exclusive machine again. And I wouldn't want that
Right.
because I invested so much in so many other games, but their inability to be clear about this and not giving me confidence that I'll be able to play my favorite games at launch.
Right.
Just because I believe that Destiny will be playable. I can't imagine Destiny wouldn't be playable.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll be enough. I don't think that'll be enough for me.
Um. Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't
Honestly,
be.
I
Yeah.
don't even know where to begin on like what games get chosen, what don't, because so many of them have like several thousands of players concurrently on there. Some have millions. And
Hmm.
what is Sony going to be? Just like, well, sorry, we haven't gotten
Exactly.
to you yet.
Exactly. And that sucks. And that sucks because it just limits your chance to have flexibility with
Hmm.
what you want to play.
Yeah.
If they had been clear from like how it was back in the article and just reinforce it, that's like we basically built a PS4 inside this thing. Your games will be there, and if they have PS4 Pro enhancements and you never had a Pro, it's like you're gonna get the PS4 Pro version when you play it on PS5.
Hmm.
Just say that, and that's enough.
Right.
Because that's how I saw it originally when they mentioned backwards compatibility. I never upgraded to a Pro, and the closer we got to PS5, I didn't find a need to upgrade it to one. And I just like the idea of yeah, finally all these games that have Pro enhancement, I'll get to experience it, but now with the new console, now with all this cherry picking that they're kind of mentioning, and
Hmm.
that just yeah, it's like the PS5 right now. As of right now, it's a bummer, Paul. It is a bummer,
Yeah.
and
That is.
yeah, it's just man, yeah, it sucks that I think their actual full reveal of the console has to be mind blowing for me to like forget about this. Because right now, because I'm already going into with a bitter aftertaste that I can't figure out how they couldn't figure this out.
Really though.
That's what I feel, and it sucks. Like they had 5 years, 5 years for this thing. They didn't add it to PS4. Fine, that means that all this you needed to figure this out for your next console, and this is how it's looking. No,
Hmm.
no thanks. So yeah, man. Hopefully they change the narrative, but so far, not feeling it.
Yeah. But in any case, the exact opposite of how struggling these two have been fighting back and forth for their next gen systems. Meanwhile, the Switch is impossible to find in pretty much any stores outside of maybe
Hmm.
ordering them online from somewhere.
And price gouging is happening. I'm seeing it being sold at 450.
Really? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Do you know, like, have you seen where they're selling that?
Amazon.
Oh my goodness, are you serious? I do actually remember. If you remember, right as Smash Bros came out on the Switch, they had that adapter, and it was being
Hmm.
sold, and it was like these ridiculously high prices on Amazon.
Hmm.
And maybe this is a second wave of that happening because the Switch is so easy to just take with you and do what you need. Especially the light version is being bought up
Hmm.
everywhere
Yeah.
like hotcakes.
No, the light right now is the one that's blowing up because the normal one
Hmm.
hasn't been sold. Like that's the one that's like on shortages.
Right.
So, and I know there was like a mention that the Switch production was switching from Foxconn to Vietnam, hence why there's gonna be like shortages.
Oh,
But man, something like I remember hearing something like
poor
that.
timing
But
then, if that's the
yeah,
case.
exactly. No, apparently they intentionally said that because that's when COVID-19 was the worst it was in China.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Apparently, it's getting a little better, but
it is.
like, but they haven't resumed like normal life over there.
right.
Like that's still.
It's working on it though.
Mhm, yeah, exactly. So
And speaking of issues that COVID-19 has been hitting people with, once again, our old buddy that we love to talk about and sometimes hate, GameStop.
I love to crap on.
Yeah, that you do. Well, you're going to have plenty of opportunities for these next couple of minutes because GameStop tried a wonderful little tactic that they called going up against the police, saying that
Yep.
they were quote unquote essential during the course of all this, that they were worthy. They put a service out to the people that was needed, and that they needed to be open during this time out of complete desperation, that they were
Hmm.
worried if they close they're going to shut down. Well, unfortunately, they or for them, unfortunately, they did have to get told that they had to shut down
Hmm.
for this time. All the people that I know of, they're sitting at their stores on the phone constantly because people are calling their store to see if they're open, and they're
Hmm.
only able to accept payments of a gift card, and then they have to immediately hand the game to the person. So nobody's able to go in the stores. They're not able to buy
Hmm.
anything outside of something
They have to
they
wear like glove, the plastic bags
right,
in their hands, and they like and they have to like bring it outside the store, something like that.
right. So what they've actually been doing, it's so convoluted because what they have to do basically is the person either has to call on the phone, pay for a gift card, ask for the specific game they want. The gift card has to be used, and then the game has to be handed to the person that comes up to pick it up. Alternatively, I guess you could always go to like one of the other stores that has GameStop gift cards, buy them there. But um, it's been a very difficult time for a lot of those people, and many of the ones that keep coming to the GameStop stores are those that don't really listen to rules. So they're
Hmm.
like actually beating down the doors. They're pulling on the handles that are locked, cursing out all the people that work at GameStop, and freaking out over all this because they're either not paying attention, and some of them didn't even know about the virus happening
Hmm.
until the employees told them, or they just weren't paying attention to all the signs that they had put up on the doors. It's just absolutely wild, the kind of things that people don't pay attention to.
Oh yeah, it's like ignorance is a bliss with so many people, and I think what the gal for the GameStop corporate to like just say, oh yeah, we're essential
Hmm.
and we're gonna remain open despite authorities saying no, you don't, you have to close, and endangering their workers. And apparently, I was reading they were not even wanting to provide paid sick leave
Oh
or
no,
something like that, or
not
like
at all.
or paid leave. I'm like,
They just don't have
and then
the money.
exactly, and that tells you everything. And then also, like, at the end of the story, that they're scheduled to close 300 stores this year.
Which were adamant about explaining that this was part of their plan originally, that they were always going to be downsizing, and I think they said de-densifying is what they called it, where they were trying to like make more
Straight BS.
space between Game Stops. But yes, there is.
Straight BS.
It is all over the place that they are trying to shut down many more. Honestly, I am surprised it's only 300 and not way more. But
They closed like 100 something when we were coming into this year, and now they're gonna close 300 more.
that's true,
That's
actually.
like, yes. I feel COVID is has killed GameStop. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't think GameStop survives this.
There was any hope that I had for the company, it was definitely before this virus hit, because we had Reggie coming on from Nintendo of America to help it out,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a little bit of optimism. I was like, you know what, he like listens to the consumers. Maybe they could kind of work
Exactly.
something out. And then I realized more about the nature of a board of direct being on the board of directors is a lot less of a hands-on situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then after this happened, I went, you know what? There's no way they're going to last for very long, unfortunately.
Exactly. And I feel the worst part about, oh, again, this whole virus thing is I think for the first time, anyone that was holding into the semblance of being in physical are gonna see the benefit of being in digital.
Hmm.
And the thing is, the digital is like a drug. once you see once you see the convenience and how good
Yeah,
it feels,
you don't want to go back to it.
you don't want to go back. And it's exactly how Blockbuster died once like Netflix digital became a thing,
Hmm.
because when you remove the hassle of having to spend gas, getting out of your house, driving to the store,
Hmm.
have it, hope that the game is still there, then drive back and all that, to just you purchase it when it's available, it's downloaded, and it'll be just ready there for whenever it opens.
Yep. And
It's like that's gonna be the reality that that many people face right now, and that's just gonna be like the almost complete death of retail in that case. And it's kind of like, it's kind of similar to what happened with E3, which, by the way, it feels like it's been years since it was canceled, and it was only 3 weeks ago.
yeah,
Can
right.
you believe that? Um, that whenever these developers notice the convenience of not having to set aside time to like be represented at a trade show, so they can just do it at a digital event that'll cost them significantly less, they're not gonna go back. It's the same thing with GameStop. The more people now get to get a taste of digital, it's over. Like it really is over. It's I can't imagine them. So, and especially a company like this that has been hanging by a thread in every way, shape, or form, and having this kind of PR snafu of trying to pass themselves up as essential services and all that.
Hmm.
That's your nail in the coffin, because that's like you're despicable at that point.
Yeah, and
You're
that's
completely despicable, and you're being very honest about how desperate you are.
yeah. At
So
some point, the person that's pretending to not be drowning is going to start flailing for their life, and I think that's
yeah.
what we're seeing.
And didn't you say behind the scenes to me that you had a friend already put his 2 weeks notice,
Yeah, he's
something like that?
gone from that now, right as the virus actually started really hitting. So now I think I only have about three friends left out of like the 20 or so that
Hmm.
were in GameStop, presumably for life.
Are one of those three still one of the few that were seen to try to climb up the chain of
Yes,
command or something
he is
that
still
was?
currently the manager over at Hammond, Hammond, Louisiana, which is on the northwest side of our Lake Pontchartrain, close to Baton Rouge, the capital. Um, he is still working at it, but apparently the district manager that is above that whole area is absolutely terrible. Has been
Mhm.
mistreating them, has been playing dumb for a lot of situations that have arisen. One of the people I don't know personally, but connected to, said that she's had to bring her own cleaning materials after being promised that there would be
Mhm.
some delivered to
Yeah, they are not providing cleaning
her.
materials, proper cleaning materials to that. Just look at that negligence.
Yep. Hmm. It's really a nightmare because they have so much, they're so spread out, and they just do not have the resources to be taking care of people at this time. It's classic like situation that I always got myself into when I was playing like a Sim City game or a Tropico. I extend myself way too far because I'm trying to progress. I suddenly find out that I'm losing way more money that I'm making because of a couple of different things, and then some massive disaster happens that puts me under, and there's no way I'm ever able to get out of it. It's just a matter of treading water and trying to
Mhm.
survive as long as I can until I finally go under. And this is
Exactly.
exactly textbook about what's going on with that.
Yeah, and it's tragic because when we read the Reggie news, I don't remember which episode it was. 2 episodes ago,
Yeah,
last
there's like
episode, I don't
two or
remember.
three episodes.
Yeah, that was the first time after me having like been clinging the death bell, the bloodborne death bell for this thing.
That was like
Um,
maybe something can happen.
exactly, that was like the first time. Like, okay, there's a glimmer of hope, but after this, nope,
Mm.
not gonna happen. I think the best thing that can happen is for them to completely close down and then remerge, Toys R Us style.
Yeah, which
After a
is
while, yeah.
crazy, but that I do hope that it's not like the full end for them, but they will need to shut down pretty much everything and then revamp their entire brand if they're going to come back from it.
Yeah,
But
but it's just that then like has the video retail um market ever came back?
not
No,
really,
right?
no.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's doomed to be the same way. Thank you, digital. It's like a thing. I read the tea leaves in 2013 when I made the switch.
That you did.
I knew this. Yeah, I knew
Um,
this was coming.
so, not to jump completely from that, but at least somewhat of an interesting news, if not actually good news for right now. I'm trying to pace ourselves,
Hmm.
and we have. Am I reading what your highlight is?
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that is the Final Fantasy VII remake is actually getting shipped early in Europe and Australia. Unfortunately, that means that us in the U.S. and you down there, Alejandro, aren't going to be affected by it. But at
Hmm.
least in those continents, they said that because of the fears of all of the shipment getting disrupted, they've gone ahead and sent out everything. This isn't just distributors. This is the ones that people have ordered online.
Hmm.
So they're saying that they're going to get it several days, if not like a week before the game's supposed to come
Very
out.
early. They're getting it because Final Fantasy is next week from when we're recording.
Correct.
So
But they're going to be getting that in the next couple of days, and then Square Enix, in a last ditch effort to just be like, "All right, kids, be fair, be nice," said, "Please don't spoil everything to everybody else that is not getting it until the 10th."
to which I say, the nature of humanity itself means that's exactly what's going to happen. People are going to post videos of this thing. The YouTube algorithm is going to be a complete and utter disaster. That's going to send it to your recommended pages unless you have some good testicular fortitude and are looking at your recommended videos.
You just say
Um,
testicular fortitude.
yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, because I know how hard it can be to for you to stay away from
Oh,
not just
okay, I
you, for
see what
people
you
to
mean.
stay away from that, and the YouTube algorithm is gonna spoil that. That happened to me with Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
Yeah,
okay, so Jedi Fallen Order had a very specific spoiler that everybody kind of expected. I'm not going to say it's wrong that they showed it, but I had a feeling that the final boss would be something like the character that we saw in that situation based on the time
yeah, but
period
I
of the
didn't need
Star
it in a
Wars.
thumbnail that was recommended to me.
I agree. I mean, Xbox's
Exactly.
advertisements
No,
revealed
no,
it.
yeah, no. This was before the Xbox advertisement over November over Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
This happened the week of when the game when Jedi Fallen Order originally came out, because that was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving.
oh, I agree.
The week after, when the game well, the recommended videos already were showing me that. I'm like, why are you showing me this? I haven't even watched videos of Jedi Fallen Order.
You
Why are
got
you
to get
showing
those
me this?
views, man.
Yeah.
It was pretty
So
terrible, honestly.
yeah, so it's like that's why I'm like, yeah, once people get their hands on this thing, you're gonna see a lot of videos of Final Fantasy VII remake ending. You're gonna see a lot of videos
Yeah.
saying this is the length of Final Fantasy VII remake. You know what? I'm actually kind of excited for this to happen because now we'll get confirmation how long this thing is.
Yeah, true.
Finally, so
Well, at
I think that's
least
the only thing that
I have a couple of people that I listen to, like on YouTube. Maximilian Dude, he is very into the idea of the Final Fantasy VII remake. He's going to definitely put up, he's tasteful about it. He wouldn't like put up actual spoilers unless he warned people, but he will give us information on like how much is actually in it without giving a lot away. And I'm very curious to hear some
yeah.
of these people talk about
After we record today, I'm muting all YouTube notifications because sometimes I get them in my phone as a recommended
it.
thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like, why are you even showing me this? So the YouTube algorithm is a complete utter garbage. Uh, when it comes to that, so beware of that, people. Yeah,
that is true.
I'm only affected in the way because I'm going digital. I'm only playing that thing when it comes out, which is on the 10th.
Hmm.
So
That's what I
for
was.
all of you,
Originally, I was supposed to get it physically at GameStop, but
hmm,
now I think I might just do it digitally. Um,
might as well.
yeah, with all
If you
these
want to play it at launch, because they even mentioned that they don't even know if people will have it available for them,
exactly.
the physical copy. So well, as soon as they said that, I'm like, and that is why I'm digital master race, because there is no limit of copies that you can get on that thing.
But then you're
So
also giving up your right to a physical copy, and if they decide to revoke your license at any time, they can just take their property back.
the thing is that they never revoked the license. In my time that I've been hoarding digital stuff, they have never revoked anything that I have owned.
Oh, I mean, of course not.
It, it-
That's not something that they would do. I'm just saying in the future, like say PS5 and all that stuff comes out, they could do that at any point. Honestly, that actually did, now that I'm thinking about it, that did happen to me on my Rainbow Six Siege. I had bought a bundle that came with the Ghost Recon Wildlands, and when I got my
Mhm.
new system, it no longer was available for that, and I could only buy their deluxe edition of the actual Rainbow
Wait,
Six Siege.
but if you bought it, it should have been in your
It
library.
was not.
That is
They took it
crazy.
away because it no longer technically existed in the bundle I had bought it. And
But it,
so I actually had to go out and like buy the game a second time or
yeah,
third
that,
at that point.
that's the first time that has happened to me because whenever I bought a bundle of those things, those games are listed individually in your library.
That's what it was
So
supposed to.
yeah, yeah, pros and cons and all that. So far, like I haven't had a problem with it. Like in literally my 7 years that I've been like doing digital, actually eight because I started near the end of the PS3 era buying games digitally
Right.
because they were cheaper. Um, I haven't had that problem. Obviously, there's been problems of games being delisted. That if you hadn't bought them before, they like for
Right.
example, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 is no longer sold digitally, but I still own it,
Huh.
and it's I can easily download it and
Um,
delete it and download it with no problem
right. And then
because I
like
bought it.
the
So
Scott Pilgrim video game because of all
mhm.
the issues with the
Yeah, the
rights
rights
of it.
issue completely ruined that game. DuckTales Remaster was like delisted, but got relisted recently.
Yes, I noticed
Now
that
under a
as
new,
well.
yeah, now under a new banner. So that kind of happens, and that's always that. Even like GTA 4 got delisted from Steam
Mhm.
because of music licenses. So they had to like remove that, and then they relisted it again without the music, but you can still play that game.
Right. So, like, it's
Uh,
never really a malicious thing, but there are times that things slip through the cracks, which is always something to consider when you do digital. But overall, I'd say it's still worth it. But just keep in
yeah,
mind those issues
I feel
do
the
exist.
yeah the pros and cons are more pros than cons when it comes to digital at this time.
Yeah.
So, and I feel to me nothing. It's better with like what the digital ecosystem has been with how cheap games that get there.
Right.
So, yeah,
I
I
think
think that
that's about
pretty
it
much,
for all of
yeah,
us today.
that pretty much covers it today. It's a short episode. The previous one. Now we're back to our old shenanigans. But that's what happens when you don't record for 12 days. A lot of things happen.
There's a lot going on. So,
Yeah.
in the end, I think we talked about a lot of stuff. I'm very curious to see what some of these things are going to develop into, especially the GameStop. I'm very curious to see what they're going to have to do to try treading water for longer.
Exactly. So I'm like, this is the grimmest it'll ever look for them, and things were already grim.
True.
So, but hopefully, yeah, no, they don't say that the night is dark before the dawn.
That
Not
is
just
true.
for
If
yeah.
nothing else, this might lead to like a new renaissance as people are stuck at home, getting creative, making their own things at their house, and
Hey, as long as I don't have to see another Wiz Khalifa "Baby Give Me Something" song,
I mean,
I'll be a
technically,
happy
you
man.
didn't have to see that the first time.
Yeah, but it's very hard to not see when all your friends on Instagram are even doing it.
I
But
see.
then you see freaking hilarious videos of a family of Hispanics grabbing their paraplegic grandma in the in their wheelchair to have this to have her dance and they wheel her out.
Oh my goodness.
I have to show you that. It's like I freaking
Well, I can't wait to see that. And with that,
I'll be sending it to
everybody,
you.
I think that's it
Yeah,
for us.
yeah,
Oh goodness. All right. Y'all stay safe out there. Remember to
yeah.
cover your face, wash your hands, and press X.
Exercise social distancing,
Yes.
people.
And press X.
Press to play.
Good night, everyone. Or good morning.
Bye bye. Hasta la vista.
See ya. 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 See ya.